Welcome to the Modern Husbands podcast, where any combination of Dr. Bruce Ross, Christian Sherrill, and Brian Page host national experts who share winning ideas to manage money and the home as a team. I'm Brian Page, founder of Modern Husbands. Sometimes our listeners want more support than a podcast can give, individual or couple support, which I now provide. Details can be found at modernhusbands.com, or you can email me at brian@modernhusbands.com. Today's podcast is a special edition. I'm thrilled to have our good friends, Dr. Kate Mangino and Ashley Brichter, on the show together. Both have been past guests, and today we're going to have a conversation about how couples can come together in a special We Treat, a day in which we are going to focus entirely on setting aside time to make sure that the business of life is being pulled together by you two, led by experts and through facilitation and exciting learning opportunities. So first, I want to welcome Dr. Mangino and Ashley. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Can you please call me Kate, Brian?
Okay. All right. I'll call you Kate.
Thank
all
you.
Right. So I need to confess a few things. First of all, both are dear friends, and both of them have done things professionally that have made an impact on my life. So I know I'm going to make them blush, but I'll start with Kate. When I started Modern Husbands, I started with how to be a great husband. I just didn't know what else to do when I typed into Google, like, what is it that I need to do to be great for my wife as we changed the roles in our home. And the first book that it led me to was Equal Partners, which I read, and it really did transform my life and the way I approach managing money and the home inside our own home. And Ashley, I really wish I would have known Ashley 20 years ago. I know she would have probably been like 4 years old, but she's a lot younger than us. But she would have provided the services that I needed when our children were born, because we went through the typical, hey, go to Lamaze class so you can teach your wife how to breathe, like these things that you never really use. She actually teaches through Birthsmarter what couples need as they go through the birthing process, things that we missed out on as a couple, and that we hope that you, as you follow along in this special edition of the podcast, and then for our We Treat, which we're going to talk about here momentarily, recognize that add special value to that once in a lifetime experience. So I'm going to hand it over to Ashley, who's going to has a few questions for Kate. And for those of you who listen to the podcast frequently, you know that I cannot resist stepping in every once in a while with some follow-up questions.
Thanks, Brian. And I'll just say back, it's been so lovely having you and the Modern Husbands, like family and ethos, as a part of Birthsmarter. And I think that's part of why we're working together here, is we're seeing that we're all touching how to support families in a different way, and coming together, we hope, really can move a marriage forward. Okay, so Kate, we're going to start with you so you can give us some context. And really, as the historian and person who can bring the theory to the group, I think the first question is to shed light.
Well, historian. No. Okay. Academic perspective.
Academic researcher.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll take that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. If I was 4, you're the historian. No, I was 20 years ago. I was starting to frame ideas about this work. I'm not that young. Maybe sadly, now I'm old enough to care that I'm old, so that makes me, in the group. Okay. The question is, if we are in a time and place, which we all think we are, where we agree that household equality is important, and that is what couples are striving for, why isn't it happening more yet? Why aren't people able to more easily adopt habits of household and domestic equity?
That's a great question. Not easily answered, but I'm going to do my best. The concept of household equality or gender equality is hugely popular. Pew Research across political spectrum, so just Americans in general, it polls higher than 80%, which is enormous in terms of like our country coming together to agree on something. More than 80% of Americans do believe in the concept of gender equality, the concept of household equality. The hard thing is that we are transitioning to how to live those values. How do you not just believe something, but how do you incorporate it into your everyday actions? And I think that's the block right now. That's the challenge that a lot of us are up against. And the reason why we're not just flicking a switch and doing this quickly, is because we have structural challenges and we have norms challenges. The structural challenges are going to require policy change, policies around affordable childcare, policies around paid time care, paid leave for caregiving for all people. And policies take a long time, right? We're seeing how it moves very slowly through the state level, the national level. It requires electing officials that represent, our values. We're going to set that aside right now because we're more norms people, but I just wanted to acknowledge that it will require policy change as well. In terms of the norms, we just have a lot of old norms that are still lingering, right? They're not spoken out loud. They're just sort of lingering in around our lives. Norms like men need to provide and protect for our family. Norms like a woman can work, but only if she has the household stuff put together first. Norms like women have some sort of biological maternal instinct that makes them a better parent than men. Norms like a woman's value is really linked to what she does in the home, and a man's value is very much linked to what he does in the workplace. We don't say these out loud anymore, and a lot of people don't believe them. But because they're woven into our culture and our framework, they influence a lot of decisions that we make. And we tend to fall back, or it's not even a fallback. It's like we're kind of pushed back a little bit because our culture is one way. It's very hard to live in an equal partnership in the home, right? We're trying to do something different, and we're trying to do something new, and that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to require intention and conversation and partnership and working with other people.
I think from there, I want to actually go to, I'm redoing the order because I think the next question is, why is household equity good for everybody? Because I think there's a real argument to be made that household equity improves the lives of women, right? Like it.
Oh, yes. And that's what we talk about the most.
But
exactly.
We all deeply care. And part of the reason that we are in this work together is that we deeply care about men and fatherhood in particular.
Yeah.
And there's a huge argument to be made that domestic equity improves the lives of men and the relationship that fathers have with their children. So can you talk about that?
100%. We often focus too much on the benefits that come to women. Those are the obvious ones. That's what we see written about all the time. I think that's what you were alluding to. There are also equal benefits to men, and who want to serve as equal partners, who want to be full participating fathers in their child's life. Historically, we have put dads into this provide and protect role, right? You need to bury your emotions. You need to be strong. You need to earn money. You need to kind of perform masculinity, perform leadership, be the leader of the home, which means you're not really being yourself. And you are pigeonholed into this income role where you need to bring in a certain amount of money to be loved or be accepted or to feel like you're a good dad, right? That's not the way that any of us think here. That's a very sort of old-fashioned manner. But again, a lot of those norms are still lingering. And a lot of the ways that we raise boys still leads young men to think that that's their primary role in a family. And we're seeing now all of this data about older men who are depressed, who have heart disease, who are committing suicide at rates 4 times than women, men who are struggling with mental health and depression. This is because they've been pushed into that provide and protect role. They've been acting at work and at home their whole lives. They have very few true relationships with kids, with partners, with friends, and they're lonely and they're struggling. So we're seeing what happens when you don't allow men into the household. So instead of thinking about, we want men to step up for women, that's not what we're saying at all here. We're saying we want everyone to step up for themselves. When men fully participate in the household, they're part of that full human experience. I have interviewed and worked with many dozens of men in my research over the course of the last several years. And what I hear from them is participating in my home, being a really present and, intentional father. I feel competent. I feel satisfied. I feel proud. I feel myself. I feel like I can be my own genuine self at home, and my family loves me for it. And that kind of true love and acceptance is something I don't feel elsewhere in my life. And it's super, super special. And I'm going to bump this actually to Brian to say, you're the one man here in this. Does that resonate with you?
It resonates with me in many ways. Like, first of all, I think it's important to recognize that, men also crave social and emotional connections with their children, not just this notion that we go to work and we come home, we open the newspaper, and then we let our wives play with the kids. I've seen sitcoms like that, and it's just I don't know, it's kind of demeaning.
It is demeaning.
I love being involved emotionally and socially with my family. And there's also like this, what drives me a little bit nuts is there's this idea that, men don't like things to be clean and orderly. I actually am, between my wife and I'm the one who is a little bit, I don't want to say I'm OCD, but I have those tendencies. I like cleaning. I love walking into a home that, feels like an escape. And frankly, when you have a job where you're behind a laptop all day, it's kind of nice to see something physically that looks like it needs to be done, and then an hour later it is done. That's satisfying. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because unless you break through gender norms, you can't recognize the importance of finding happiness by being our authentic selves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think motivation is a really important part of this whole conversation.
I can just say it goes like both ways, and in so many examples. The cleaning is just one, and like my lens is working with so many couples immediately postpartum where people's different cultural norms and habits and personal preferences about things like tidiness and order and hygiene and all of this. It's like we adopt what we think like we should be doing or how we should be living, and then there's so much more conflict in homes when you're not really tuned into or given permission to live the way you want to, and to find a partner who can complement that natural way that you want to exist in a household. So it's like, how do we push through the gender norms and then also just push through like the social economic norms of how we should be living. So okay, Kate, finish out here and give us M.O.V.E.'s approach. So in your words, we can all take our turn, but like in your words, what are we trying to build with Move Your Marriage?
So when we all came up with M.O.V.E., we thought of the acronym M.O.V.E., which stands for money, operations, values, and empathy. And I'm going to let Brian talk about money in a minute, and Ashley's going to talk about operations, but let me just spotlight the V and the E. And that kind of gets to what Ashley was just talking about, shared values. A lot of people get married, enter into a long-term relationship, move in together. And you say, okay, we have a commitment now, but we never say out loud what that actually means. What happens is then two people have all of these assumptions of what a relationship means or looks like or feels like, and they bring it to this new family and they just go. And so what M.O.V.E. does is it just says a few things out loud and asks couples a few questions to think about, to sort of spark conversations around, can we come to some shared values that we say out loud and we can agree on together? And sometimes when you start those conversations, you realize, oh, we had a different idea of where we were going. And that was leading to some underlying conflict, miscommunication, misunderstandings. But once you take the time to really talk it out, you can come to a consensus fairly quickly. The empathy thing is also incredibly important, which goes back to what Ashley was talking about. There's more information in the media about why it's good, why equality is good for women, but equality is good for everyone. We bring empathy to every relationship that we have. Every participant who's going to come to M.O.V.E., we are going to be welcoming and we're going to be empathetic of their situation. There's no judgment about who does more or who does less. There is understanding about why we all fall into these patterns. It is not me against you or us against them. It is all of us against a pattern. And what we're going to do is try to change that pattern together. So we approach, move with empathy and hope that that role models so that, couples can be empathetic with each other and that you can feel all of your feelings and at the same time understand where your partner's coming from. Okay, I'm going to start with a really direct question. Why do so many couples argue about money? Why
Well, I'm
is
going to
this
answer.
such a conflict point, even when couples have enough? Like, it seems like this is sort of one of the reasons why people argue the most.
It is. Yeah. It's according to the APA, it's a leading cause of stress and anxiety in a relationship. Some surveys have found it's the leading cause of divorce. And, it's complex, but I think from my perspective, the best way to kind of share to folks who are listening right now is to share a story of one of my failures, because I think it'll shine a light on a lot of the ways that people approach money conversations without, having the types of training that we all deserve going into a marriage, whether it's through high school, whether it's in college, or whether it's just, the conversations that parents should be having with their kids in the modern world. So I'll give you an example. I had won a teaching award that came with $25,000 years ago. And so now I've got this big windfall of cash. And the question is, what do you do with it? And what I wanted to do with it was invest it into our children's 529K. And what my wife wanted to do with it is go to Disney World, right? And it turned into this like drag out giant argument. And there's a number of reasons for that. So first of all, I think that I need to stress something to our listeners that I didn't stress to my wife, which is the reason that we got into the argument, right? So my parents both grew up in a modest environment and worked very hard and made a lot of sacrifices to pay for my college education. And there was, as an example, we drove like junk cars so they could afford to save. When I say junk cars, I mean the first car that I remember as a child, somebody followed us home from work and they asked to buy it. It wasn't for sale. Okay. They just asked to buy it and we sold it, and they bought it to enter it in the Clinton County Demolition Derby. And I watched it take first. It won, right? That's the first car. The second car was so bad that the gas gauge didn't work, the speedometer didn't work, the door handles rusted off. And
did you have to do a Dukes of Hazzard to get in and out of the?
Oh, no. That would have been better. What my dad did was he drilled holes where the door handles were and ran metal fish wire with a hook. And so to open the doors, you had to yank back like you were starting a weed whacker, right? And the doors would fly open.
We get the picture. Junk cars, sacrifices, paid for you to go to college.
So yeah, and obviously there's a story with that about how my dad's like, look, that's the only way we could afford to pay for your school. And so here I am with this influx of our cash, and that's important. It's our money. I never once thought this was my money. And for me, it's like, okay, we can really get started on the right foot here. And it all originated from that. My wife, her fondest memory in her childhood is going to Disney World. And her parents worked hard. They had different value sets, but they went to Disney World and that stuck with her. And so what really happened was this. Yeah, we had an influx of money. We had to figure out what to do with it operationally. The argument wasn't about money. It wasn't about the operational decision. It was about a disconnect of values that we had never even discussed. We did not understand why we were both so passionate about where that money would go. And as a result, didn't show each other the empathy that's necessary to make a collective decision with our money that speaks to what's most important to us. And I think what I want to stress to listeners is that when you're having conversations about money, what you're really talking about is a tool that you're going to use to live your life based on the values that are most important to you. And the fabric of all four of those things within M.O.V.E have to be woven together for it to work.
So, knowing all of that, Brian, what are you hoping to bring to M.O.V.E? What sort of advice do you have for couples, knowing that most people who come to M.O.V.E are probably going to be parents or thinking about starting a family? I know that there can be additional conflict when the wife earns more because that challenges gender norms. We know that kids change everything and kids are super expensive, and you add the pressure of saving for retirement to saving for college tuition, like you just mentioned. So sort of what's your approach to sort of M.O.V.E to help couples through this very scary, I don't know, space of money? Like, it just seems, sometimes it feels like such an unsurmountable task that people don't know where to start.
And in large part, it's because there's oftentimes a void in the professional services or the education that we've experienced heading into it. So a lot of people, when they think of a money expert, they think of your wealth manager. A wealth manager doesn't address these things.
Right.
They'll talk about asset allocations. They'll do some Monte Carlo simulations. It's not difficult to automate investing for the future. There's no mental load that comes with it. So wealth managers, let's take their role in your lives and put that to the side. What I want to talk about is the daily grind of managing money and how the interconnection and interdependence of that works through the relationships that we all have with each other and with our children. So you talked about breadwinning as an example. Like the fact is that if there is a female breadwinner, that some men struggle with that because we're told, hey, your job is to be the financial providers. And you says that.
So men feel shame, right? Men
We do.
feel shame. Yeah.
We feel shame. We feel guilt. And so how do you work through those conversations? How do you have a conversation about deciding who is going to provide the caregiving after a child is born? Is it her? Is it him? Is it childcare? And doing that in a financially informed way that strips away the gender norms that act as barriers to concluding what is in the best interest of couples. And so the last thing I want to point out are that when couples are busy, it can be a real drain to also manage money, meaning that recent research has found that financial stress is most closely tied. So not well-being, financially stress is most closely tied to who the quote bean counter is. Who's responsible for managing the day-to-day finances? That just came out from Dr. Hargrove, Dr. Archuleta, and Dr. Ford. And why is that the case? So we dive into what that is, and then how can we structure systems to make sure that it alleviates some of that mental load and the emotional labor, and systems to make it easier to ensure that the couples are on the same page, working through financial decisions in advance, not when you're frustrated in the moment.
All right. I'm super excited to partner with both of you. I think one thing I love about M.O.V.E and working with both of you is that I continue to learn so much from Brian, from Ashley. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Hey, thank you, Kate.
Think you have a couple questions for Ashley.
I do. Okay, Ashley, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So if a couple only has 30 minutes this week to make one change, what is one thing they should do?
Okay, I'm going to answer it in a big picture way and connect it to what you just said, right? Which is that when we're trying to figure out improvements around managing money, it comes back to the systems and the structures that we've set up, right? And the systems and the structures have to follow the values that we've established. So like, I think what we're all identifying and starting to give people is like a little bit of the order of operations that we are suggesting people move in, and what will help them scaffold if they want to come hang out with us for a day or a weekend. But so with 30 minutes, I think that talking to each other with undivided attention about how life is going, with like active listening strategies is the baseline, right? And so that means like phones are put down, kids are gone if that is possible. Ideally, the 30 minutes that they have is not after 9 p.m. or whenever kids go to bed. It's like a morning cup of coffee, it's a lunchtime date, it's a weekend walk, right? It's when you have sort of it could be hard to find, right? I know that it's hard for me to find 30 minutes to talk to anybody I live with, but you set aside the time to sit and talk to each other and just start with saying, can you tell me all the things that are on your mind that you are thinking about and working on or working towards to support yourself, me, our family at large? And can I write those down? And then can I tell you all the things I'm thinking about or working on or working towards for me, for you, and for the family so you know? Because so much of the trouble we get into practically, tangibly, logistically is that we're too busy to sit and have these project management conversations. And I deeply empathize as a parent of two children running a business with the fact that we don't want to manage all of this, right? I don't want to manage my money. I don't want to manage my chores. I like really don't. I want somebody else to. I want nobody to. I just want it to be easy. However, just like Kate is making the argument, I mean, we're all making the argument, but Kate articulated it that household equity is better for men or is also good for men, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a real argument to be made that putting in a little bit of work to project manage your household intentionally gives you so much more time as a return on your investment. And so the 30 minutes of like, hey, start is just have a two-way conversation where you're fully paying attention and listening to each other and making that mental load and the invisible labor and the thought, right? Make it visible to your partner.
So how can couples use shared calendars or to-do lists without falling into like that manager assistant dynamic where one partner is carrying all the mental load and then the other partner is kind of like the employee?
Yeah,
which is,
totally.
I have to say, this like least sexy relationship ever.
Yes.
Ever. Like if you want to be intimate, let's try to avoid that.
And unless you want to,
yeah, like unless that's your kink, right?
Unless that's your kink, then you could do a role play, and that could be separate. But that needs to be a role play, not your real life.
I think that that's true. I think that's true. I think it's really tricky because I think that, look, there are some couples who are so good at this, and I'm so envious of them. There are other couples who want to be good at this and just aren't. And then there are couples who like straight up have an employee-employer relationship at home, right? Like I manage our household and I tell you what to do and then you do it. And I do think it is really important to get out of that. And the way we get out of that is by letting whoever, like obviously we're talking about marriages or long-term relationships, but when we're talking about domestic equity and sort of sharing the mental load, you can bring kids into this, especially teenagers, or, like I live with my mom, so she is an adult that I have as part of my family. And so for me, it's about letting people be masters of their own domain, right? And that is having an ownership mindset, or like let everybody be in charge of something that they either are already good at or can get good at. Like some people are like, well, you're better at it, so you do it. And it's like, okay, hold on. Am I better at it because of cultural norms, because of societal expectations? Or am I better at it because I'm actually better at it? And I'm thinking actually of a very specific example. Brian, when you came to talk to the Birthsmarter dad group, the very first question that you were asked was a new dad. I mean, he had his baby in his arms, tiny baby. And he said, my wife doesn't want to manage the money. And she just sort of told me I had to, and I have no idea what to do. And so and I will say very personally have not been the money manager in my family. And I think I'd be good at that.
Mhm.
So,
You do run
so
your own business.
I
So
do.
presumably,
I
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so letting people be the masters of their own domain, either what they're already good at or what they need the opportunity to get good at, is really important. And then, I don't have a corporate background. I think a lot of people, and Brian and you and I are both fair play facilitators, so we understand the language from the fair play world where we can sort of take corporate organizational leadership principles and apply them to our home. I understand some of that, but also I think what we need to do is create new language, right? Because I don't want my home run like a business. I want my home run like a home that's well organized.
Mhm.
And so, how can we envision something new where you're the master of your domain, right? You are let's not even call it a C suite thing, but like you're in charge of money and then I'm in charge of food. But we have systems where there's a menu on a whiteboard, or I tell you on Sunday night what I'm thinking about for dinner, and you tell me on Thursdays at lunch when we have our family meeting what's going on with the money so that I know for food, right? And
Mhm.
that is whoever, whatever your sex or gender is like, whatever. Everybody does what they want to do. But there's insight and communication across the departments, so that if somebody has like a whole lot on their plate because, hey, the beginning of April is really tricky for the person who's doing family taxes. That's not the best time for the person planning the family vacation to come in and be like, I actually really need you to give me all of your preferences for our summer by April 10th, right? So we need to be able to see each other. And that, I mean, we have to get into lots of that. That's about letting go for people that have previously been in charge. That's about stepping up and holding yourself accountable for the people who have not historically been doing that. There's a lot of trial and error and compassion and empathy, but I think a lot of it comes from ownership and accountability.
I want to circle back to a point that you made to begin the conversation about how it is that you approach conversations. Because if you are acting in the moment when emotion's high and cognition's low, you're going to have a problem. Or if you're doing it at 9:30 at 10 at night when you're decision fatigued, you're going to have a problem. If kids are draped all over, you're going to have a problem. You brought up going for a walk, a lunch date, and the morning cup of coffee. Like that's really important. And I think that's a good first step to recognize that in order to operate as a team, you need an environment that allows you to do that.
Yeah. And
I,
not everyone, I've learned, Brian, my husband does not like to have personal conversations outside. Like he would never take a walk and talk about personal things. It makes him feel uncomfortable and uptight. And so I'm just saying, talk to each other about like, where do you feel comfortable? Where can you have hard conversations? Like some people want to be in a restaurant. Some people want to be on a walk. Sometimes you want, I mean, I've actually had a lot of couples say that they do Zoom calls during the day because they can have
yeah,
honest conversations in their office. And it's easier to find time during the day than at home when the kids are crawling all over you.
yep. I want to make sure our listeners know where to go because obviously we've been talking about Move Your Marriage for the duration of this podcast, and it's something that we are all really excited about that we're going to be doing in the future. And so if you go to moveyourmarriage.com, you're going to find all the answers to the questions that you're going to have or you might have about it. And then you're also going to have an opportunity to reach out to us. Maybe there's something that we did not include in the FAQs. Is there one final thing that you would like to say, Ashley, before we depart? And then after that, Kate?
This is something I really wish I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wish I had this resource. And I think partnering with the two of you and creating this for all of the couples I know in my world at Birthsmarter uh, it is a completely sincere and heartfelt offering, to say it doesn't have to be as hard as it has been for those of us who've been married for a long time. And it's really worth it.
Well said. Kate, what about you?
One of the best pieces of advice I got very recently was from a couples therapist who said, I wish that all couples, when they partnered up, got married, moved in together, knew that the expectation was they were going to change. No one stays the same. we all change, and parenthood changes us even more. Changing together is the goal, right? And when you think about, am I going to sign up for M.O.V.E? Am I going to spend a little bit of money on this? Am I going to carve out a whole day or a whole weekend? It's hard. It's a big sacrifice of time and of money and of resources. And when you're super, super busy, it's hard to know where to put those resources. But I truly, as Ashley said, I wish I had this. I wish that I would have gone to a M.O.V.E. retreat when I had my first. I think it would have saved so many arguments, so many misunderstandings, so many miscommunications, that I hope people see this as an investment in themselves and an investment in their relationship, that embrace the fact you're both going to change. That's normal, that's natural, that's expected, and that's healthy. And that with a little bit better communication, hopefully you'll change together.
Well said. And I echo your sentiments, both of your sentiments. And please, if you want to learn more, reach out, go to moveyourmarriage.com. And we would be thrilled to be able to work with you to empower your relationship to operate in a way that speaks to your values and that addresses the challenges that a lot of busy dual career couples face.